Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Hi folks, and welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. Lovely to have you back. I hope you and yours are well. Just before I introduce my guest, could I ask you to, for those of you who haven't already done so, could you please hit the subscribe button? We're trying to get to over 1,000 subscribers. It opens up all sorts of possibilities for us here at Through a Scottish Prism. Could I also say to you, if you hit the wee bell, that will also send you a reminder every time one of our shows are being broadcast, so you won't ever miss a thing again. Thanks very much. I've got a special today and a friend of the show, an all-round good egg. It's Julie McAnulty of the ISP. Julie, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism, this time, as you see, with cameras.
I know, I'm very impressed with the backdrop behind you, Roddy. This is a different feel altogether.
Yeah, it's all good tiling, actually.
It's good marble there. I'm just eyeing that up quite enviously. Yeah.
Well, yes, it's done, and I've built a wee conservatory, which I now call my studio. It's very posh, very posh. And how have you been keeping?
Fine. I mean, we're just getting back into the fray, as it were, just now. Obviously, it's been an interesting time in Scottish politics, so I think it's about to get even more interesting, but let's see what happens. Yeah,
so, I mean, we're here to talk about you're standing in a council by-election this month. I've forgotten the date. What date is the by-election this month?
It's the 24th of June, and it's Murderson, which is in North Lanarkshire.
Sounds like Burniston, doesn't it, out the television comedy show? Burniston, but Murderson. I'll be getting some hate mail for saying that. But just if I could quickly do a reprise, because I spoke to Colette quickly just after the election. We had her on our inaugural Prism show on camera, but we didn't really get much chance to have a chat. It was a very brave and honourable thing you and the ISP did by standing down, just as AFI did. I've got to say, it must have been a hard decision for you. You'd put a lot of work in.
Yeah, we felt it was the right decision, though, Roddy. And if we had to take that decision again, it would still be the same. We needed to allow someone to have a proper go at that. So, no regrets there. It was one that we took together as well as members. It wasn't simply by the exec. I mean, everyone voted on it, and it was a pretty unanimous vote. So, we still feel that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, I do as well, and as I say, I have great admiration for yourselves and AFI, who did the exact same. But sadly, I don't have the same high opinion of what the SNP did, our fellow Independence Party, inverted commas, because now they're complaining. I saw recently that Mike Russell was complaining about Stephen Kerr, nasty man, being in the Parliament, how terrible it was. And I thought, oh, you've got a cheek. He's there because you didn't support the 1-2. We have got. I mean, we've been proved right. What we said, what ISP said, what I said. Countless bloggers said that SNP 1-2 doesn't work. It just doesn't.
Yeah. It takes time to get these ideas across, Roddy, and we were fighting an uphill battle because the SNP obviously were pushing the line 1 and 2, and if you're someone who's not as involved in politics as we all are, and maybe this is something we forget, that not everyone is as interested or engaged, and if someone's telling you to do something that you trust, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to go against them? Are you going to listen to someone who, to all intents and purposes, is an outsider? We are the outsiders just now. And what we actually need to do is we need to put down roots now and establish ourselves. And this is going to be the real test. This is where the real test begins.
And you're doing that by standing in all council elections that come up?
Yes, as many as we can, basically. But we've got to put down roots and spread the message a bit. And I mean, unfortunately, the Holyrood election has been a missed opportunity. And I think realistically, the earliest that we're going to get a referendum now is going to be 2026. Now, we need to be ready for that. We need to use that time profitably and not give up and not chuck everything up in the air. We need to start organising, setting up networks of people speaking to each other, and we need to be ready for whatever comes round the corner. I mean, I'll be frank with you, Roddy. When ISP started back in May, over a year ago, we thought we were late to the game in terms of getting a good result at the Holyrood election. But it had to be started. The process had to be started, and it takes time to establish something like this and what we're trying to do, which is to build a third force in indie politics. But that's the route we have to take. There's no way around this anymore. I think that all of us who are looking at the SNP just now and the Greens understand that. And now they're in a bit of a position because the baton of independence has been handed back to them. And if they drop that baton, they now know that there will be people there standing ready to pick it up. They need to have that pressure on them. So we've got to keep going.
I mean, I put out a nightly tweet asking, what have you done today to advance the cause of independence? And sadly, the SNP and Greens have gone a wee bit quiet since the election on independence. There's not much getting done. Nothing's actually happened.
Well, again, this is where people like yourself are so important, because they need to be held to account, and there needs to be, right, okay, what are you doing about the referendum question, which was part? What are you doing about the referendum bill? What are you doing to follow up on what Martin Keating started? Martin Keating's was turned down because apparently he wasn't important enough to ask the question. What a cheek. But anyway, so someone who is important enough, i.e. the SNP and MSPs, what are you doing to put that case forward again in court? Let's see the progress. Show us the chits. We need to be constantly harrying and laying down the paper trail and just making sure that they stay on point. And if they're not, letting everyone know that they're not. There's no hiding place now, and we've got to make sure that there isn't.
Yeah, well, I'm doing that as are many of my colleagues. It doesn't make us popular in some places, but it has to be done. And I agree with you. 2026 at the earliest. I think you're maybe even being optimistic. There was a great opportunity missed. I mean, we should, if people had listened to the Alba proposal, we would already be negotiating with Westminster the actual independence of Scotland. But now, as you've pointed out, the question hasn't been cleared, the bill hasn't been cleared. We're no further forward, and it's sad. But we've got to keep going, as you say, and keep fighting. And you, on the 24th of June, are putting your head above the parapets in Murderson. You had a bit of a link to this area. I mean, I've got to say, when I put out your nomination, I saw it and I did a well done on it, and I didn't receive your cheque for that, incidentally, when I said well done for standing.
All right, sorry.
You didn't send me a cheque, you know what I mean? I'm due my royalty. But anyway, I immediately get attacked by someone from Wishaw who told me, outsider, Coatbridge, you can't have an outsider. My goodness, how parochial have we become? I know it's local government, but Murderson is quite a special seat, though, in many ways, is it not? It's been more like a family dynasty.
Yeah, so it's a family called the McKendricks that have held it. So there's been two brothers. There was David McKendrick, who held the seat back in the 90s to about, I think it was 2004, 2005.
I thought it was 7, sorry. Yeah, on you go.
Oh, maybe 2007. And then Robert McKendrick, his brother, when David McKendrick died, Robert McKendrick ran. They actually ran against each other at one point as well, I might add, for that particular seat. But anyway, Robert ran for it, and he held the seat up until when he died, just a few months ago. I knew Robert at council. He was very nice, actually. And there is now another Robert McKendrick, who's the son of that Robert, who is going to be running for the seat. So it's a tricky seat. There's no getting around that. But basically, Roddy, we want to get out there. We want to breathe some fresh air. We want to speak to people, and we want to start getting our message out. This is how we're treating it, and we want to get a good result from it.
Of course.
you know. But the important thing is, while we have a situation where the tiers are low and the weather's good, and there's plenty of time, that we can go around and have all the conversations that we all need to have with people, because there really is no substitute for getting round doors and stuff. Social media is very helpful, but it can only take you so far.
Correct.
And there's always people you're not going to reach in that, and nothing actually beats someone speaking to you on their doorstep. So we'll be planning to do a lot of that, hopefully over the next wee while.
And have you got lots of workers?
We've got plenty of folk. We've got plenty of folk ready.
You wouldn't mind some more?
Wouldn't mind some more. If there's always room for more, Roddy. So if anyone wants to join us, you're very welcome.
Yeah, right. So anyone in North Lanarkshire listening and beyond, don't restrict yourself, and you want to go in and help out the ISP in this seat, because Alpha aren't standing, AFI are not standing. So it's only yourself that's standing in the group. Of course, in that, what you call the SNP, they'll be standing.
Yes, they're standing as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for independent supporters, you can go out there and help, and you can get in touch with Julie or myself, whatever, and we'll point you in the right direction. And how much door knocking are you going to be able to do?
Well, maybe. I mean, I would reckon that probably what's going to happen is, while we're leafleting, we're probably not actually going to knock on doors, but there'll be lots of people about, and so we can have those
out
conversations.
In their gardens, for example, in this weather. Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. Hopefully run some street stalls.
Good.
And stuff like that we're going to do, but it's not going to be because obviously there is still a pandemic on. You do have to be careful. But anyone who's out and about, and there will be plenty of people out and about just now, we'll have those conversations with them, and as I say, just carry the message forward. And
have you got any street stalls planned at present?
We're hoping maybe a week on Saturday.
And where's that going to be?
Now, I'm not quite sure yet, Roddy. I don't have specifics, so maybe I'll just leave that at the moment. But I'll put something up as soon as we've got something.
Let me know, and I'll get it out there as well. And then any of you are watching, want to go up there and say hello, offer to help, make up a crowd, come along, because you're right. It's important that ISP and ALPA and AFI start getting a footprint in the local authority. There's no better place than local government, and that's exactly how the SNP did it. Was in local government, and that's the way the movement's now got to go.
Yes, when I some years ago I was on the Monklands Hospital campaign, and I remember one of the people, he was in the SSP. It was just before the splits and that they had, and they went, a lot of them went off to join Solidarity. But I remember him saying to me at the time, he said that he felt the big mistake that the SSP had made was that, he said, the way that he put it was, he said, we went for the glory first. He said we went for the MSP seats and we didn't put down roots in local government. And I think it's important to have that stability. And this is a work that we all need to do over the next while, Roddy. And it'll take time, but as I say, it's a journey that's got to be taken, and we may as well begin it now.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And next year, of course, we've got the big council elections, where there'll be 1,000 or 1,100 seats up for grabs.
I think it's 1,227, but don't quote me.
Approximately. There you go. That's me schooled. So 1,227. There's plenty of room for everyone. All of the independence parties. And of course, with STV voting, there is actually, for the first time, we've got the opportunity that the unionists have used to great effect of transferring our votes to fellow independence parties.
Yes, and that's a very useful thing, and it's a much easier argument to make, I think, than than the argument about the DeHont system, which I think people have got their head round the way that the local government voting works better than they have round DeHont, and exactly because DeHont is more complicated, I think. But I think everyone's got some nodding acquaintance with sudden death, as I call it, and they understand how that works, and also that your votes can transfer if they're not used, which is good as well.
Yep.
So it's an easier argument to make.
Yep. And on that, you get nine preference votes, do you not? Is it 9 in the council election?
It depends on how many people are running in your.
So if there's 20, you would get 20 votes.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing I want to make clear, and I think it was misused. Vote to Uboke, which came from Ireland, and the way I viewed it, I never ever voted anything but SNP in my life. And so when I ran out of SNP candidates, that was me now ready to bulk. So I stopped voting. I was having no way, was I having one of my votes going to a Conservative, Labour or Liberal. I wasn't going to vote Unionist. So I stopped voting when I ran out of SNP candidates. Now, if I was back home for local elections, I would be voting, I could, depending how many candidates ISP I've got there's a couple of votes, I've got a couple of votes for AFE, I've got a couple of votes maybe for Scotia Future if they're going to go local, and a couple of votes for Alapa, and maybe a vote to SNP, although I'm now swithering on that one, I've got to be honest. So that's how we could do it, and then you don't ever vote for the Unionists. Don't use up all your votes, I would say. They count for Unions. Sooner or later they will transfer to a Unionist, but that's just my point of view. Do you agree or disagree with that one?
Yeah, the point of it is that your vote's never wasted, and also if there's any surplus votes, if your candidate has any surplus votes, then other candidates that you might prefer will get some of the benefit from that. It doesn't have a value of 1, but it'll maybe have a value of a half or something like that, depending on the transfer. If you imagine it a wee bit like a slice of cake, like a big cake, and someone gets a slice, and if it's a bigger slice than they need, then some crumbs, a smaller slice comes off that and goes to someone else that you like. So that's why you should keep voting when you do it, because there will be a value to it.
And that's exactly why I don't vote when it gets to Unionists, because they will get a value, and I refuse to give them any. So you've been a councillor in this local authority for, was it Coatdyke? You were the councillor for the SNP?
Coatbridge North and Glenboig it was.
Yeah, right.
At that time. So.
Yeah, and so it's not as if you're a rookie. You know what to do as a councillor.
No, I think probably North Lanarkshire Council will never forget me, because
yes,
I had quite a time up there. You probably know I was a whistleblower, Roddy, in terms of what was going on with procurement with the Mayor's housing property contract, and that led ultimately the complaint that I made to Standards Commission about what was going on led to the resignation of the then leader of the council, who'd been in for 20 years. That in turn led to a big investigation into procurement. I wasn't the most popular person after that.
You still aren't.
And I think quite a lot of what happened to me after that was directly as a result of that. But I think I left the place better than I found it. And I mean, one of the last things that I did before I left council was I made sure that a couple of things went through that improved the procurement process in North Lanarkshire, particularly in terms of transparency as to who was getting awarded contracts, the value of the contracts at the start of the contract and at the end, because there was so much money getting wasted. And this was one of the things that was uncovered during the investigation of the contracts, was that some contracts were starting off at £500,000, and then at the end of the contract they were at £9 million and things like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's local government for you. I was on the finance committee because nobody else wanted it, and I was an audit for the same reason. And I think they were very sorry they ever put me on it. But
Yes, I would imagine so.
but yeah, I do know my way around.
Yeah, and what are you going to? What's your sort of main platform in this election? Are you standing on that again, or have you got a different theme?
Basically yes. I would say that the one thing that I will promise is that I'll do things right. That I will always fight for transparency within the council, and I'll always fight my constituents' corner as well. In terms, I mean, actually, even before I was a councillor, and this is maybe my one connection with Newmains and also Crindledyke, believe it or not, West Crindledyke, was I actually was secretary of a group for. It was about the bins. It was North Lanarkshire Council were charging for special uplifts, just starting to charge. And I was secretary of a group of tenants and residents associations that got together to challenge this. And I was actually one of the people that went in and negotiated 3 free uplifts for everyone. So Newmains and West Crindledyke have actually had a benefit from me, even though they may not know it. So that was back then. But I mean, there's going to be a lot of issues post-pandemic, and I hope I can say that now. Post-pandemic, I'm hoping we're seeing the end of this, and we're particularly going to be looking at employment issues and stuff like that. And we're going to have to make sure that, I mean, there's going to be cuts, but we have to make sure they're in the right place. We need to make sure that people are properly supported. There's a lot of what I call new poor just now. That's people who are becoming unemployed for the first time. They've worked, and people like that suddenly find themselves in circumstances and they don't know where to turn to for help. But there's going to be quite a battle to try and keep small businesses going and stuff like that. So I mean, all of that's to the front of my mind. Also, I mean, in a very practical sense, I would like the council to be a bit more understanding about people who are defaulting on council tax and stuff like that at the moment. There was a kind of moratorium at the start of the pandemic on council tax payments, but in practical terms, if the council start an eviction process on someone, and if they follow that through to its conclusion, it costs the council thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds to do it. Whereas if someone can intervene sooner, and there's organisations that can do that, such as Citizens Advice and things like that, and can sort out debt arrangements and so on, then that can be avoided, and it can save the council lots of money. And I'm concerned that the council have been cutting a lot of these services, or they've been throwing them into, I mean, in particular, I'm thinking of Citizens Advice and other services like that. They've been throwing them into a kind of rat sack for funding, where they've all got to scramble for the same funding, and it's getting cut and cut and cut. I mean, and we're only talking, I mean, but we're not talking an awful lot of money for a council. You're maybe talking for a bureau, if you're talking for seed funding, you're maybe talking 50,000 a year or something. But in terms of the benefit that they get back, in terms of the number of evictions, for example, that a place like that would prevent, the saving to the council is hundreds of thousands. So there's not an awful lot of joined up thinking going on, and I think that's something that I could probably help out with, because I know quite a bit about it. But all those things have to be in place, Roddy, and we need to be able to stop people from falling through the cracks, as it were. And I think there's an awful lot of folk falling through the cracks just now. And not all of that's the council's fault, because there's a whole lot of places shut just now because of the pandemic. And so places that folk would normally walk into for help are getting shut. But you're also getting things like Women's Aid got defunded here as well, Monklands Aid. And I mean, it serves a lot of folk. I mean, it's not just this area. But anyway, sorry, I'm rabbiting on.
Well, that's why you're here. That's right. You're here to
Yep.
rabbit on, for want of a better phrase. The people want to hear what you've got to say, not what I've got to say.
Yeah, but we're heading towards grim times, and I'm
Yeah.
not fault. In a sense, I have some sympathy for the council as well, because I know that their money's getting cut as well. But I sometimes think they could use it smarter.
Well, yes, smarter is better. We're coming towards the end of our time. Is there anything that the Yes community out there can help you with in this election?
Just anyone that can leaflet would be useful. Get the message out there that that I'm running. Speak to anyone you know up in these areas. So we're talking Newmains, Crindledyke, Coltness, Cambusnethan, Bellside, Cleland. I hope I haven't missed anyone out.
You're in trouble if you have.
I will be indeed. But those are the sort of big areas in that in Murderson.
Well, on behalf of myself, I wish you all the best of luck. I know what a thoroughly decent person you are, and I've got a lot of time for the ISP, and I hope that your election is very, very successful, and that the party goes on to great things. Thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you, Roddy.
Okay.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.